Are you wondering what to do with that dusty bottle of apple brandy that you've had in your cupboard for a while? One of my favourite cocktail names and one of my favourite absinthe cocktails is this fruity and fresh crowd pleaser. Let me introduce to you the Pan-American COUPE. This drink comes from Charles H. Baker's 1939 book, The Gentleman's Companion, or Around the World with Jigger, Beaker and Flask, which was part cocktail book and part sort of travel diary, reminding us of a time when travel was exotic and glamorous. Something that we can weirdly relate to after a couple of years of COVID. Baker says it was from the notebook of one of his pilot friends who, when off duty, may seek one. Clippers were flying boats operated by Pan Am, and they apparently had different proprietary cocktails served on different routes. Certainly rather more glamorous than the little bottle of Gordon's gin and can of Schweppes that you get while flying nowadays. It's essentially a Jack Rose cocktail, which we've actually already covered here if you're interested, but with absinthe added, and the aniseed is a great addition to the pomegranate and apple flavours, and it really just lifts the whole drink. I like to go with the French theme in this one if we're using absinthe already, and use actual calvados, so an apple brandy from a specific region in France. I really like the more savoury edge that you get from it, but you can absolutely use Applejack or a non-French apple brandy if that's what you have to hand. This calvados in particular actually makes a real effort to sustainability. It was dreamt up by bartenders, and it's actually a carbon negative distillery. It's also pretty affordable, and it's really young and fresh, so it works well in this kind of sour style cocktail. Then you have grenadine, which is a pomegranate syrup. You can absolutely buy it, but just try and find a good quality one that doesn't just taste generically pink. You want it to actually taste like the fruit. I just make my own though, because it's really easy. You can just simmer equal parts of pomegranate juice and sugar, and then add a splash of pomegranate molasses and a couple of dashes of orange blossom water, although don't stress if you can't find those. And I'll pop the recipe below for you. The original recipe for this drink calls for very little grenadine, just a teaspoon, but now I tend to make it in a more traditional sour ratio, so a little bit more citrus and a little bit more sweet. The absinthe is just a supporting act here, so it doesn't have to be anything too fancy. I'm just using Pernod. It just needs to have a flavour strong enough to come through as a little rinse. And it's easiest to pop it in an atomizer bottle, otherwise you can just add a couple of dashes to a drink or a little bit less than a bar spoon. Hi, I've just stepped out from behind the bar to behind my laptop for a moment here to do a little ad with our partners Skillshare. They're an online learning community. They're all about personal growth and development and a bit of exploration, which is definitely on my agenda for 2022. I'm obviously pretty busy with a full-time job and doing the channel and a few other bits and bobs, but I'd really like to have a bit more time for some hobbies and so on, and just kind of increase my creativity this year. For you guys, I did have a look at the cocktail content, and it's great. There's even a course by Ivy Mix, who's a personal hero of mine, so you should definitely check that out. For me, I think before I get into the painting and creative writing aspect of things, I need to work on the crux of the problem, and that is going to be my time management. So I'm looking at this course by Ben Rowlands, which is sort of a productivity weekly planner, to see if I can work out how to have a little bit more me time. They were kind enough to give us a link so that the first 1,000 of you that click on it can get a 1-month free trial and join along on this journey. So have a little look at that in the description below. To make this drink, you'll need a jigger, shaker tins, a hawthorn strainer, a fine strainer, and a coupe glass. Your ingredients are 50 ml or 1 2/3 ounce of calvados or apple brandy, 20 ml or 2/3 of an ounce of lime juice, 15 ml or 1/2 an ounce of grenadine, a spray of absinthe, and a dehydrated apple fan to garnish. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to juice some lime juice. Then we're going to go 50 ml of calvados or apple brandy, either is fine. About 15 to 20 ml of grenadine. You can obviously adjust this a little bit if you prefer things a bit sweeter or a bit sharper. 20 ml of your freshly squeezed lime juice. Then we're just going to fill with ice and shake as hard as we can. Give your glass a good spritz with absinthe and fine strain your drink in there. Then we're going to garnish with a little dehydrated apple slice, and then we'll do another little spritz of absinthe over the top just to make sure you get all of those nice aromas as you kind of bring it up to your face for your first sip. The Pan-American COUPE. So you get absinthe, but also, I mean, yeah, the calvados is definitely coming through on the nose, like heaps of apple already, even from this far away. It's really bright and fresh. This grenadine that I've made has a bit of acid in there as well. You know, it still has actually like a fresh fruit sort of flavour to it, so it's really pretty zippy. If anything, you could actually probably make it slightly sweeter, just bump up the grenadine a little bit, but I quite like it reasonably tart anyway. It's definitely the perfect kind of richer, almost slightly wintry while still being fresh version of a sour. If you love a Sidecar or other dark spirit sours, then this is definitely one to add to your repertoire. The Pan American COUPE. So now you know.